Yeah, I don't know what the hell that shit was. And hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fucking that shit just said uh, error with connection or something. Just like boop, shit just popped right out. Yo, that shit happens sometimes. All right, yeah, I gotta get to painting now, man. It was a fucking. And that was crazy. Damn, getting hungry already. The truth behind artificial intelligence. This was 1 year ago. Let's find something newer on AI. A theory you've never heard of, Michael Robinson. It was 3 years ago. How G5 will change your smartphone in your life in 2019. This was uploaded 1 week ago. That's some really new information. I also watched the video. This painting? Which one? They're all really expensive. I need to know how expensive I need to tell you it is. Some are expensive, some are very expensive, some are really expensive, and some are goddamn. I can't even afford that. Uh Busybone warns 21 Savage on Instagram live with guns. Ooh, the old heads is coming out the woodworks. For this one, this painting here, ooh, it might not be that expensive. For two reasons. Well, for one main reason is I didn't photograph it. That's where my pictures get really expensive. If it's when it's all of my own work, when it's all of mine, when I photograph that shit and do everything from the beginning, my own concepts, those are the most expensive ones. But this right here, I didn't photograph this. I'll feel comfortable letting this go for like $3,000. It's because it's still a large format canvas. It's a 30. That's a 30 by 40. I gotta get a tape measure to keep up here. It's a 30. I think it's a 30 by 40. So the canvas is pretty large. You know what I'm saying? It's But yeah, for pieces that I don't photograph, I do have the permission to paint this, and I feel like it's more of a collaboration. You know what I'm saying? Two artists are merging one concept. The thing is, the concept isn't mine, and so these right here, I like normally because if it's not a 36 by 48, I can't find my fucking my yardstick, yo. Like it's not a little painting. It's still pretty big. Yeah, that's what that is. It's it's a 30 by 40, not a 36 by 48. So these are some of my larger canvases. These bad boys cost the most just because I gotta buy the canvas itself, yo. These canvases aren't fucking cheap, and so it's not my largest format, but it's like the next to it, and it's a dope ass image. So for these pieces, probably looking right under $3,000, maybe 27. I don't know. I gotta see how I feel when it's, and then plus I gotta do the gallery prices too, cause the gallery takes 30% commission if it sells. So what I want for it, honestly, for my time and labor and my effort, and then I gotta tax 30% onto that, and then give it to the gallery. So when the gallery get they commission, I still get what I want for it. So it's weird pricing these things. You just gotta feel comfortable where you don't feel like you're selling yourself short, yo. Oh, the got on the beat up. The old beat up Air Max. I was doing some sanding when I was painting and stuff. I actually painted in these and sanded in them, and now they're just dusty. The black and white Suede Jones Air Bubble. The black and red and one ankle socks. I had these for a couple years. I always try to see, like, soon as you can't, if you can't read the name on the bottom of your shoe, hey man, throw them shits away, bro. Long as you can still see that shit say Nike. I keep rocking with them motherfuckers. That's the thing though. I like buying reasonably priced shoes, man. I don't want to spend $200 on a pair of fucking shoes, man. I don't like spending $120 on a pair of shoes, really, man. You get a pair of shoes for like $75, man, $90 or something. I can find them shits, and I like buying shoes when they on sale. And so goddamn, now my shoe rack full, and that's how you. I don't know, man. I just can't fucking buy ass of fucking expensive shoes, yo. I got a nice set of fucking reasonably priced shoes that are fucking comfortable, and you swap them bitches out so that one pair don't take too much wear and tear. Hmm? For a $5,000 piece. Oh, in the gallery, do I get 15? No, no, they would take 30% of the 5,000, which is what I'm. Hey, I paint. I don't do numbers, man. What's 30% of 5,000? Calculator. Damn, my calculator don't even want to come up and help me out. What the fuck, yo? Oh yeah, nah. The gallery gets. That's what the gallery gets. Yeah, 30%. The gallery gets 30%, and I'll get the 3,500. So yeah, if I want 3,500 for a painting, I gotta price it at 5,000. That's kind of how it works. You know what I'm saying? That's how that shit works, yo. The gallery takes a 30% commission. I had one gallery that I was a part of. They only took a 20% commission. There's another gallery that takes 25% commission, but like on the real, like 30% is like most galleries are gonna take 30%, yo. Yo, that'd be crazy. I'm gonna get this, hang his painting here. Yeah, well, yeah, but galleries get they cut, yo. They get they shit, yo. So you gotta. That's what I be saying, yo. Now that's why I try to tell people too, man. You're gonna buy it from me, you can buy it from me, and don't go to the galleries, yo. But the galleries help you get recognition and get your name out there. You know what I'm saying? And like, even at the auctions, man, I just auction, put a piece in the auction. Yo, and it's a for the auction, it's the same thing like a 70-30 split, but with the auction you get the 30, so I'm going to get the lesser part for the auction deal. You know what I'm saying? Because the auction is kind of like, because most people donate it. So they have two options. You can donate a piece of art and let the gallery auction off, and all the proceeds goes back to keeping the gallery open and functioning and employees and everything like that. Or if you do want some, monetary gain for your art, you can have the option of getting 30% of what the auction price is. And so I just auctioned off a piece and I'm getting pennies compared to what, if I would have just sold it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to get like $50 for $1,000 painting. Oh, definitely. That's anything in the entire world, bro. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's everything, man. Your knowledge and understanding of certain functions and faculties is excellent. You know what I'm saying? But you need to know people to give you that opportunity to showcase your skills. So that shit won't never change. And that's why I just try to push this shit as hard as I can and be in as many places as I can, because you never know when you're gonna bump into that person that you need to know. Like you the man? I finally met this motherfucker. Thank you. So look, you about to make me famous. Finally met the man. Damn it. I've been doing this shit for 12 years trying to find you, man. Oh, he said he got the connections in Paris and Italy, Rome, New York, Cali. My shit gonna be everywhere. That's all I've been waiting for. Just the one guy to do it. Cause I ain't got the connections. Shit. Then he'll talk to one of his millionaire buddies to buy one of my paintings for $1 million. Now all my art worth $1 million. Motherfucker done set the bar. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get one person to set the bar. You set that bar, whew, you golden. Is war between China and the US inevitable? Whoa, this was like a month ago. So we gotta listen to some of these TED Talks. Get some of this education in here. Stay up on global, political, economic, scientific. All of them just. Oh man, it just refreshed. Why did you just refresh? I was gonna watch that one. I sit here and talk too long. Damn it. Then if I go to the TED Talk channel, I'll never find that same one again. Bitch. Mm. I swear these motherfuckers be listening in on the conversations. They was like, oh, he's about to give him that. Let's not do it. Alright, let me click on one of these before it disappears.
This episode is brought to you by Skillshare.
Yep, got that one on the history list.
Gentlemen, listen up. Arsky Derek here. I want to invite you to an exclusive and free webinar with
Imagine playing a co-op shooter like Fortnite or PUBG on a VR headset in real time, with zero lag all through your phone while traveling in a fleet of self-driving cars going 200 miles an hour. Sit tight, because the future of gaming and everything else...
Say that again?
Imagine playing a co-op shooter like Fortnite or PUBG on a VR headset in real time, with zero lag all through your phone while traveling in a fleet of self-driving cars going 200 miles an hour. Sit tight, because the future of gaming and everything else is about to change forever.
Really?
If you look up into the corner of your phone, you're probably used to seeing a little indicator that says 4G LTE, or 3G, or God forbid, 2G. And you've come to understand that it probably has something to do with your phone's connection to your mobile network. The higher the G, the faster the connection. It's pretty easy to follow. The G stands for generation, and each subsequent generation refers to a specific minimum speed, connectivity, and reliability necessary to classify that network as a particular generation. 1G let us talk to each other. 2G let us send messages. 3G gave us broad data and internet, and 4G LTE made it a whole lot faster. But all that's in the soon-to-be past, because up on the horizon is 5G. And while you may be thinking that faster, a little more reliable, and a little newer, it's actually a massive breakthrough that's going to change the way devices connect to the internet, and more importantly, to each other. In fact, as 5G rolls out over the next 2 years, it's going to change, well, everything with a wireless connection, which at this point is, well, pretty much everything.
So this is, they're calling that the Internet of Things. It sounds pretty simple, the Internet of Things, where literally everything is connected. Your toaster, your refrigerator, your watch, your doorbell, your electronic locks on your... Everything is fucking connected to the internet. Everything. Your alarm clock. Anything you think of that has a Wi-Fi mode, all devices will be connected through the 5G network. So, like I say, people think, yo, Thomas. So, I wish the cord was long enough to walk around the house. I did an Instagram live of the new house and showed people the I said I had to redo the stairs, the carpet, the bathrooms. I think I'll work on the kitchen way later this year, maybe November or something like that. But I got all the carpet done, painted all the walls on the first and second floor, and redid both bathrooms. One bathroom still has a little bit to do in it, so. But yeah, I may do a few more live streams with my phone so I can walk around and show people the crib. So how 5G will change your smartphone in your life. Let's get back to this.
So which at this point is, well, pretty much everything. So what's so special about a 5G future? Well, first of all, it's fast. Like, really fast. Like 20 gigabits per second over wireless fast. Like 100 to 250 times faster than 4G. Because by comparison, 4G provides speeds, on average, of about 10 to 20 megabits a second. So that's like going from streaming one Netflix movie in HD to streaming 400 movies in 8K at the same time.
Wow.
And while that's really impressive, that's not the most impressive part. What sets 5...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, everything does that too. The GoPros, everything is constantly uploading. Elon Musk warned us on the Joe Rogan show that Google has a AI within the Google search. and Google is standard. It is the standard. It is now a verb. It's something everyone does. And every time somebody Googles anything, we are feeding the AI. We are teaching this thing. We are teaching it. There are millions of Google searches per hour. How do the Tesla self-driving smart cars get better? Because they're constantly uploading all of the information from every second that every vehicle is actually in motion on the road, and learning from that shit constantly. Everything you ask Siri, like it is fucking weird, and it is getting scary, and it's like phase one. We're kind of still in phase one, but the subsequent phases are gonna come so fast that it's gonna be like phase 1, phase 7, phase 13, 29, and it's like, oh, wait, whoa, are we skipping some shit here? And so it's I don't know, man. What? Hold on, let me go back. I didn't see that one. Is it against AI or what? I forgot to turn my laptop back on so I can. Yo, Mike, what's up? So I can catch all the messages. But it's not. I'm not. I don't know, man. Am I worried about the shit? You gotta be in the know of what's going on, and like Google is the powerhouse with this shit, and they probably are doing the most scariest shit right now. Once again, even Elon Musk is scared of fucking Google, and they've had some shit in the works for decades now. Once they brought up Boston Dynamics, and then they bought DeepMind. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, Google? And they're showing you the shit that's capable, that they're capable of, and it's only getting like. I want that thing. They're only getting better with this shit, yo. And so the world knows it. And that's the thing about this AI trend is Americans want regulations. We want to slow down. We want to guide this thing a little bit better. But what about other countries? Because it can be used as a weapon. So, okay, just because America has strict regulations over creating a general artificial intelligence, what is Russia going to do? What are their codes and regulations are going to be like? China and Japan are declaring this to be the Asian century. If they see the vast potential in AI development, are they going to stop developing and funding their programs because America says, hey, we need to slow down and regulate? No, nobody's going to fucking stop this shit. And America knows that shit too. And it's just like, this is a different type of Cold War. You know what I'm saying? It's a different type of Cold War, because motherfuckers is not going to be the last ones to have this fucking advantage of technology. Isn't it against AI laws to connect robots to the internet? I'm not sure about that, bro. I gotta look into some AI laws now. You can't connect a robot to the internet? Once again, is that only in America? You think Japan gonna give a fuck about that shit? You think any other country is gonna care what we doing over here? Or once again, they gonna try to use this technology to the greatest of their advantage? You know what I'm saying? Yo, I've watched everything Ghost in the Shell. Yo, The Japs is not gonna stop, yo. They already see the future. They've seen this future coming decades ago and made tons of movies about this shit. Way more in-depth detail than any of our fucking movies. They've been thinking about this for a long time. A long time, bro. America is really just trying to catch up with some of the concepts and ideas with Ray Kurzweil and trying to go back to Isaac Asimov and all these other guys, man. The Asians been on that shit for forever. Let's see if we can all right, we're still working in red. Did some detailing on the skull yesterday. No, not even yesterday. Probably about 2 days ago. So we're gonna essentially just continue with the red in the shirt. We're applying the third. This is gonna be the third and no, this is actually 4 layers. It's the third or fourth layer of paint. I'm sorry, guys. I've been out of the studio for so long. I am losing track of time on this piece right here. So we're just gonna say it's the third layer of paint when it looks like it may be 3 layers. I don't know. The final layer. Let's say it like that. I'm going to apply the final layer of reds to the shirt and pants. Make it through that part. The background is very similar in tones, more pinkish and some orange hues in there. So we'll get through that. Come back and work on his vest. There's very little skin tone to work with because you can only see his hands. And after we finish fleshing out the focal point, we'll come back to the smoke and try to get some more highlights in here to really make that smoke look smoky, you know, like you're smoking. How come people think they're funny or illiterate? I don't know. Uh, what is the painting? It is death come to suck you into the portal. I'm not sure, man. I'm really not sure. My man name is Butch Loxon from LA. You can look him up on Instagram. He does all these performance pieces where he wears these different colored skulls and uses different colored smokes and things like that. I just love his stuff, bro. I don't know. I have this fascination with death, and it's kind of like this is like just some of the coolest visuals that I've ever seen. And I just had to contact him, like, dude, can I paint some of your stuff? And he took a minute to respond to me. I guess he had to check out like some of my art though, and he was like, "Oh yeah, dude, your stuff is pretty good." He was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And so the first one is already finished, and when I posted that, like he immediately posted it on his page. He was like, "Yo, check out this art, blah 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 blah," and then like and so some of my followers went to look at his stuff and started following him, and some of his followers came over to my page and started following me. So uh, so what is going on in the stream? I don't know. It's weird. Like stuff is popping up on the TV that's not popping up on my laptop. iRobot, of course. Yeah, iRobot is damn near a classic. All right, let's see. Yeah, I love all those. Any kind of movie like that that deals with AI, yo, I love those movies. I might hold this. Even the one movie called AI about the little boy robot, that was good. The almost got Detroit Become Human, the video game, but I just watched a lot of people stream it, and I played the demo, and it's basically like Heavy Rain style play. So it was still a pretty good game, but there's a TV show that game is absolutely based off of, like some of the characters, even some of the fucking scenes. I can't remember the name of that show. Somehow I came across it and I watched like a couple episodes. I was like, wait a minute, this is Detroit Become Human. How did this game just rip that stuff off? Mm, let's see.
Is its crazy low latency rate, which is the amount of delay between the sending and receiving of information. Now, 4G tends to average about 100 to 200 milliseconds. And to be fair, 100 milliseconds is fast. Human reaction time is about 200 to 300 milliseconds. But 5G will get it down to 1 millisecond. That's almost real time. And being able to send and receive information in what is essentially real time means that we can use 5G to replace real-time interactions. What does that mean? With 5G, you'll be able to interact with people, objects, or characters controlled by someone else with no lag on either side. So play a real-time first-person shooter on your phone. Control virtual objects with other people simultaneously. Put on a headset and fly a drone or drive a car that's somewhere else in real life. Or, better yet, let it drive itself. That might be one of the biggest breakthroughs in 5G, a network of self-driving cars all sending data between each other and communicating with traffic lights, road sensors, aerial drones, and so on. Think about it. Human reaction speed is 200 milliseconds, and we still have accidents every day. Imagine if your car could react and communicate its reaction to hundreds of cars around it, all within a millisecond. Not only could we end car accidents, we could end traffic altogether. Hundreds of self-driving cars going lightning fast to your destination with no risk that they'll hit each other because they all know exactly where they are in real time, reacting to the actual world around them. Autonomous or remotely controlled trains, delivery trucks, even airplanes could be on the horizon in the near future. In fact, forget cars for a second and think of all robotic devices. Surgeries could be performed from the other side of the world with robots controlled in real time by expert surgeons being assisted by other expert surgeons in other parts of the world simultaneously. That could be saving lives in situations where time and distance are the difference between life and death. Factories can be staffed by robots that can communicate their tasks and position to each other, allowing them to not only do more, but do it more efficiently and wirelessly over a 5G network. Imagine a fleet of drones flying over a field of crops using sensors on the ground to sort, pick, feed, and water individual plants, all on their own. 5G will revolutionize the future, and companies have already spent billions to set up their networks and to fund new technologies that can use it. But that's not to say 5G is perfect. One major drawback has to do with why it's so fast. See, 5G uses a mix of frequencies, with most of the attention on the brand new millimeter waves that are compared to the 15 to 40 centimeter long waves used by 4G. And shorter waves and higher frequencies have a massive problem. They don't go very far. Whereas on a 4G network you can go 10 kilometers and barely lose signal, 5G maxes out at about 300 meters, and it can't go through walls, or even bad weather like rain. So what does that mean? Well, it's a gift and a curse. Having such a short signal distance means building more transmitters. A lot more transmitters. Like multiple transmitters every couple of hundred meters in every direction. On the other hand, it also means that you can pack more devices into one area. Now, 4G allows connectivity to 1 million devices in 500 square kilometers. That's about the size of Chicago. 5G, on the other hand, will allow 1 million devices in 1 square kilometer, or a little smaller than Grant Park in Chicago. So, how far away are we from reaping the benefits of 5G, self-driving fleets, and robot surgery? Well, at least a couple years. 5G is expected to be fully rolled out by March of 2020, and over the next 2 years will be slowly phased in and experimented with as sensors and transmitters are installed around the world. Some companies, like T-Mobile and Verizon, have already launched home 5G networks in select cities. But it'll still take quite a bit of time for all the new hardware, software, and brand new innovations to work seamlessly together. Until then, we'll just have to keep dreaming of a bright, new 5G future.
All right, y'all see how rapidly this world about to change, right? In the next couple years, he just basically said, yo, we're going to take all the driving jobs. We're going to take all the factory jobs. We're going to take half of the doctor jobs. And, like, they is not playing, yo, this technology, man. You got to educate these kids different, yo. You can't teach them that, you just go get a job, like, doing something physical. Any kind of manual labor, that shit about to be done, son. Let me go to the bathroom real quick, guys.
Choose to go out in style this winter. Choose the versatile XT5. Get this low mileage lease on this 2019.
Hi, and welcome back to Scotty's Tech.info. I'm Scotty with my co-host Cletus, who is a tribble. It's not a wig or a toupee. He's a tribble. So many people have been wondering. So today I want to talk about what the heck is this 5G Internet of Things. You've probably heard this term IoT, Internet of Things. What the heck is it and what does 5G have to do with it? So, okay. A few weeks ago, Amazon introduced a whole bunch of new stuff. Echo gizmos. Now, the Amazon Echo, you're probably aware, this is like this, usually it's a little cylindrical thing. You plop it on your living room table, you connect it to your internet, and you can talk to it and say, like, Alexa, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? And it will, of course, tell you what the weather's going to be. You can buy stuff, you can, blah, blah, blah. So, usually you have one of these you put in one room of your house. Maybe you have a couple of them. There are smart thermostats. Amazon decided to expand their Echo line, and they came out with something that is actually kind of more of like the beginning of the Internet of Things. And they came out with several devices. For example, there's a clock now. It's just a wall clock, except it's linked to Echo. And it'll, if you tell Alexa, I have an appointment at such and such a time, the clock will like flash or something. And there's an Amazon Echo microwave oven, like a microwave oven. They're selling it for $60, which is obviously how they're going to get people to buy them. But this is supposed to be glorious because you get rid of your current microwave oven, you put the Echo microwave oven in, and it connects to your existing Amazon Echo gizmo, and then you can do things like when you're holding your child and your hands aren't free, you can say, basically, microwave, reheat my coffee, and it'll go, compliance, and then, fire up and reheat your coffee. This is the glorious future, you see. So, there's a couple other funky devices. They came out with Amazon Echo security cameras. Yeah, obviously, everyone has heard of the situation where you're at dinner with some friends and you've all got your smartphones. You've got your smartphone, it's sitting on the table. You're not talking on the phone, it's just on. It's in standby mode. You're not actually using it. And during the course of the conversation, someone mentions a certain product or a movie or something, and then you get home and you hop on the internet or you hop on your phone later that evening, and suddenly Amazon is recommending that movie to you. They're shoving the product in your face, and you go, well, geez, how did that happen? Well, of course, it happens because all of these gizmos are actually spying on us, and they're spying on us for actually two different reasons, but one of the reasons is to sell us more stuff. So this is kind of the beginning of the Internet of Things. The idea is that everything will be Internet connected. We have Internet connected refrigerators. Now we have Internet connected microwaves, and they're all linked together to like Amazon Echo or the Google service or the Apple one, and where it's this glorious future where everything will be Internet connected, and it will make our lives so much easier. It also means that everything you say and do is going to be, audio and video compressed and shot up to Amazon or Google's roomfuls of servers, and they're going to process it so they know everything about you and they can sell you stuff. Right. The second reason is a little bit less holy, shall we say. There's an article on my website that I posted a couple weeks ago about a book by Yasha Levine entitled Surveillance Valley, and everyone needs to read this book because he starts in the 1950s and he goes all the way up to the modern era, and he talks about how basically all these companies that started all these things, and it was before they even existed, before Amazon, before Google, there was this push for essentially total surveillance. And it's bottom line is companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon are in bed with the military-industrial complex, and they have been forever. That's the gist of it. And like he even talks about, for example, Larry Page and Sergey Brin founded Google. And Larry Page, when he wanted to write a PhD thesis, his thesis was about more or less the PageRank algorithm that became the founding of the Google search engine way back when. And his PhD thesis was actually funded by DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Since then, nothing has really changed. Amazon is great because you can buy anything cheaper, but what he's really saying is that anytime you have one of these companies, there's kind of their primary purpose, which is, Google wants to make it easier for you to find things on the internet. But simultaneous to this, Amazon wants to sell you stuff. There's the primary purpose, but then there's the other purpose behind it. The reason they get venture capital funding and all this kind of stuff is because there are always backdoors built in, or apparently Google even has a whole branch that's basically like spooks basically work in there and hoovering up data, and because they have free access to this stuff, it's okay, and then Google is successful and Amazon is successful and that sort of thing. The spying part, it happens for a variety of reasons, which you'll understand if you read the book Surveillance Valley by Yasha Levine, which I will link to in the description. So, okay, you have your Internet of Things, and it's becoming more popular because we want to sell people more stuff and we want to spy on them more. And then, of course, we come to the normal thing where people say, well, I don't have anything to hide. And I've talked about this before. Many people responded and said, yeah, I don't have anything to hide. I don't have anything to hide. And, I said before, I think, maybe people are just actually afraid, but I don't think that's it. I think that most people don't actually mind. If they are aware of what's going on, they don't really mind because they actually want someone watching over them. Not in the sense of like Big Brother or Big Parent, but in the sense that we're all sort of kind of self-centered, narcissistic human beings, and so we think it's kind of, maybe subconsciously we think it's great that someone is interested in what I want to buy, and someone is interested in my beliefs and my thoughts about things and my purchase habits and where I had dinner that night, and we sort of think on some level that this is just glorious, and so that's why we don't complain more. Maybe not. Anyway, so you have this Internet of Things, it's being used to sell stuff, it's being used to spy on you. Where does 5G come into this? Well, in order for more stuff to become Internet-enabled, we need more bandwidth. Because if you have all the gizmos you have now, laptops, desktops, smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, this sort of thing, that all requires a certain amount of data to be transmitted, between all the devices that comprise this network. If you want everything to be internet connected, you're going to need a lot more bandwidth. It's going to need to be faster, higher bandwidth, and lower latency to make it all work ideally. So enter 5G. Now, it's interesting because there's an article on the website techspot.com, and the title of this article is the state of 5G, when it's coming, how fast it will be, and the sci-fi future it will enable. And it's kind of interesting because one of the very first paragraphs is, I'll just read it here. They write, many industries expect 5G to generate billions of dollars through currently unrealized revenue streams, providing an endless supply of applications and services to the more than 4 billion additional people 5G is hoped to reach. Qualcomm, for example, predicts that by 2035, the network will enable $12 trillion worth of goods and services, and the company has claimed in the past that 5G will be, quote, bigger than electricity. The World Economic Forum describes the era we are entering as the fourth industrial revolution.
Yep.
So it's all about selling you more crap that you don't need because your current microwave, which works just fine, you got to throw that one out the window and get an Amazon Echo Super Alexa microwave because Internet of Things, right? Okay, well, first of all, if you haven't watched my video on 5G,
D1,
possibly negative health effects of 5G, you should probably watch that one.
Wow.
Interestingly enough,
really
in the
just did
TechSpot
that.
article,
Holy
they
crap.
mentioned the exact same stuff that I mentioned, the studies that I quoted where they're talking.
I waste my fruit cup, man. Damn. And y'all don't even know. Hey, bro. I don't even know how delicious these little chunks of pears were. And now they're just strewn all over the place like a bone in a desolate wasteland. How rude of gravity to play such a crude trick on such a delicious fruit. I shall seek revenge for this. Jesus. My pears, my delicious pear chunks. Okay. Yo, that was like a lot of snack left, yo. What the? Oh my goodness. Alright, so I gotta go grab a snack, guys.
How 5G, the millimeter wave frequencies, will they have multiple negative health effects, but one of them is that the sweat ducts in our skin are helical in nature. They look like little coils, and these 5G frequencies directly affect the sweat ducts. And there is actually another guy I came across recently. What did I do with it? There's another guy I came across recently by the name of Dr. Ben Ishay of the Department of Physics at Hebrew University. There's another YouTube video, which I'll also link to that. I think it's like 36 minutes long. It's kind of long. He goes kind of technical. He's a physicist, and his conclusions are not really anything in terms of the health effects, because he says, well, I'm not a physiologist, I'm not a doctor. The people he's talking to in the audience, apparently many of them were. So he's saying, look, I'm just, here's what we found. And what they found was exactly what these other studies reported, that 5G frequencies do affect helical sweat ducts. And there are other interesting effects because apparently the water content of skin is especially important. Your skin has several layers. It goes from the dry, dead cells down to living cells at the lower layers. And this difference in water content also has an effect. It's kind of like if you have a smartphone connected to a cell tower and it starts pouring rain, you have what's called rain fade, which means that all the little water droplets falling between your phone and the tower out here, it's going to attenuate the signal, and you're going to have problems. So the transmitter and receiver have to kind of compensate for this so-called rain fade. So he talks about a couple different things. I won't go into great detail. You can watch that video if you want. He does say another interesting thing. There's another researcher that he knows who the guy's trying to figure out how to use human skin as a data connection. So like if you have a smartwatch on this wrist and you're holding your smartphone in this hand, what he wants to do is enable it so that your smartwatch and your phone can actually send 5G type signals directly through your skin. So like the signal would go through your body to your smartwatch and then back through your skin back to the phone. He essentially wants to use human skin as a network connection. The trouble that he's having is basically, again, this issue of helical sweat ducts. It's going to interfere with the signals because something's going on there. So the point of all that is that it's not just these studies that I quoted. There are more. If you look, you can find more and more and more. And in fact, way back, I have here a press release number 208 from May 31st, 2011, from the World Health Organization, where they write that the WHO has classified radio frequency electromagnetic fields as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on an increased risk for glioma, a malignant type of brain cancer associated with wireless phone use.
NFIB is the voice of America's trailblazers, the voice of small business.
So there's all kinds of concern about this. There has been for a while, and obviously none of this is just based on a bunch of people being hysterical, because there are many people, doctors, physicists, everything, they're all doing these studies and they're all seeing these effects. And yet nevertheless we're pushing forward with this 5G Internet of Things. So you have the spying, you have the money making, you have the potential health disaster, but they're going to go forward with it anyway.
So I dropped my one snack. So we had a little bit of, wow, that looks weird. This is taco dip though. It's just like cheese and beef and vegetables. And so I think I'm gonna snack for a minute and listen to this guy finish talking about the Internet of Things. Hey, it's pretty delicious, actually.
So, okay, 5G is going to enable an even better Internet of Things. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, it means some pretty crazy stuff. It means that we're going to have things like smart dust. Yes, smart dust.
Smart dust.
There's some research going on that's funded by DARPA. Oh, surprise! DARPA, who funded Larry Page's PhD thesis, which was the founding of Google, is funding research into smart dust, which is basically teeny tiny little grains that are powered by ultrasound, apparently. They're powered by ultrasound, and they will actually like inject them into your body, and they will somehow affect the nervous system, but you need like a transmitter on the outside that powers them with ultrasound, and then they'll do stuff. And so we're going to have smart dust. Not just smartphones and smart watches, but 5G enabled smart dust. How about that?
So the author of Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton, I think he wrote Sphere. He also wrote this one book called Prey, where it was nano machines, nano robots, but basically the same thing he just described. It was like a smart dust that was taco dip for breakfast. But yeah, Michael Crichton wrote a book like years ago talking about a laboratory that was developing this smart dust, and it got away from him and started killing everybody. Always seems like bad shit happen with new technology. Yeah, Michael Crichton, he's one of the best, yo. I say, Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park and Stephen King's The Stand are probably like the longest books I've ever read, yo. I read most of the Bible. That's a couple thousand pages, a little more than 1,000 pages, but yeah, The Stand and Jurassic Park, those are some thick ass books, yo.
There's all kinds of other stuff like always connected PCs, and every device is going to be like, oh, it's going to be great because we're going to have like everything will be internet enabled. Your socks will be internet enabled. Your shoes will be internet enabled. Your wedding band will be connected to the internet. The dust will be connected to the internet. Everything will be a little camera and microphone, and it's all going to be connected to the internet. It's all going to be monitoring everything, and of course, it's going to make companies trillions of dollars, which is why they want to do it all.
No, and it's crazy because I read a couple of Stephen King books. The Stand was the first though, and so he brings in this character called Flag, the Dark Man. Yo, this motherfucker is crazy, bro. He basically like the devil or something, but not really. And so the whole story about The Stand, and one group of people go to Colorado, and one group of people go to, what is it, California or something? And like they had this war between good and evil. And then Flag, the Dark Man, is like orchestrating all this shit. And then you read The Dark Tower with Roland, the Last Gunslinger. And Flag the Dark Man is in that shit too. I'm like, that's the same fucking character from the other story. So you read The Dark Tower, John, and that shit all crazy. And the Dark Man manipulating all that shit. And then I got this other book called Through the Eyes of the Dragon. And it's a kind of little short book, but it's like knights and stuff and kings and princes. And then, yo, Flag the Dark Man is in that story too, yo. Yo, Stephen King crazy how he used the same little evil character, but it's a completely different setting, a completely different time frame, and somehow this motherfucker just, I don't know, Flag is like some interdimensional being or something. This motherfucker is in like a lot of Stephen King novels, yo. Oh, Las Vegas. Thinner. Oh, I never read Thinner, but the movie was crazy, yo. The gypsy, the curse that motherfucker, he eating all he can eat, yo. It's still wasting away. Yo, that shit was crazy. Thinner, I remember that shit.
So yeah, that's why it's 5G Internet of Things, because you need the extra bandwidth, you need the extra capacity, you need the lower latencies, and this is what they're trying to do. And we see the beginnings of it in Amazon Echo and the Amazon Microwave and the Amazon Clock. There are a few problems because 5G to 5G waves, they propagate differently than the current generation of like cellular signals and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Because of the higher frequencies that 5G will eventually use, 5G signals don't actually pass through, like, say, the walls of buildings. They don't pass through trees. 5G waves don't pass through the leaves on a tree. 5G can't pass through rain, for example, whereas before you have rain fade, where it just kind of attenuates the signals. Rain totally blocks 5G signals. So, more or less. So what you end up having to do is, if you want to have this Internet of Things, then that means you're going to need upwards of 100 to 200 times as many antennas. So in many countries, they've already agreed that, like, yes, we're going to have these microcells, which is going to be a little box. It's basically going to be a 5G what today you would call a cell phone tower. They're going to be 5G towers, but there's going to be one on every street light post, every lamp post in every neighborhood, because you need line of sight. So, and that most likely means that you're also going to have 5G enabled devices inside your house to get better coverage. So no matter where you go, there's going to be 100% coverage. That tends to make the health concerns even more of a concern, because It's not just going to be, oh well, I'm okay because like here where I live, I'm a couple kilometers away from the nearest cell tower, and the house I live in has thick walls, so the reception inside is very, very bad. If they put one of these 5G boxes on the streetlight right in front of my house, well then I'm going to be in trouble. So this is the wonderful future, the 5G Internet of Things. Everything's going to be a transmitter and receiver, everything's going to be a microphone, everything's going to be a camera, everything's going to be watching everything you're doing. And you'll be able to, they'll be able to recommend just the right pair of shoes for you. That's the glorious future. Fortunately, I don't think it's actually going to pan out that way because companies often have these glorious ideas, and of course 5G is already rolling out in certain cities, but we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, that's the brave new world that we're heading towards. So for more techie tips, see Scotty'sTech.info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
I mean, I have cameras in my house that watch me do stuff. That's because I want to. But when I don't want the cameras on, I don't want them bitches on. And that's what he's saying now. Like, all these new devices, ain't gonna be able to turn them shits off, man. Your microwave, your refrigerator, your toaster gonna be spying on you. You cut your kids out while fixing them breakfast. You're going to have child protective services at your door. We have a recording from your coffee maker of you being verbally abusive towards your children. You're not going to have that. Crazy. Just make the commercial as torturesome as possible.
Imagine this. You wake up in the morning and you take a breath of fresh air. And you smell bacon, eggs, toast, coffee, your favorite breakfast already made for you. And you didn't even have to get out of bed. Then you get up and you go into your kitchen and you indulge yourself. You're eating, a screen pops up with your day already planned out for you. Just a finger. Then, as per your schedule, you get up and you head into your car. As you open up the car door, you realize something. That there's actually not even any seats. In fact, there's not even a steering wheel. Just a couch for you to lay down on. So you do. As you lay down, the car takes off, already knowing where your work is without you having to say a thing. So as it's speeding along the road, you're talking to someone. You're not just talking to anyone, you're talking to a friend. The same friend that had made your breakfast this morning, planned your schedule, and is driving the car now. As you're talking to them through a computer. Through isn't really the right word, because your friend is the actual computer.
Your friend is a computer.
Instead, picture this. It's dark. you can't see anything, and you're hiding from something. Whatever it is, it's outside, and it's attacking people, and you're not sure why. Why? Think. Remember now, scientists, you saw in the news the other day, they created something. Although they didn't just create anything, they created a mind. Mind inside a computer. Scientists were ecstatic. It was working so well. Until it was working too well. It was so fast that it was ahead of us at every step of the way that we made to try and delete it. It copies itself through every single computer on the planet. In an army. Army to eradicate the human species. These are two very possible futures when it comes to the idea of artificial intelligence. And when I say artificial intelligence, all I really mean is robots and stuff that we see all the time in Hollywood films.
And stuff.
These robots would be more than just Hollywood.
Sometimes I think I would be good at giving a TED talk on, I don't know, any subject. Name it. Name a subject. I'll give a TED talk on that shit. You know. Want me to talk about the Fermi paradox? Let's do it. Want to talk about black on black violence in the inner cities of Detroit? Let's do it. You want to talk about government conspiracies in 9/11? What's up? Epigenetics? Okay. Hip hop in the early 90s? Got that covered. So let me start. I give a TED talk on something. Yo, your boy Ground. Boy, you almost, if you ain't throw that LOL in there, boy, you almost got banned from this goddamn channel. And you got a damn Clemson. You got a Clemson emblem. Boy, you from South Carolina? Don't be playing with that shit, boy. What's wrong with you? It made me call my homie up. I ain't go to college, but I know people who did. You know. They don't play with them. They alma maters. Oh, tell him D1. But hey, bro. Boy, if you ain't throw that LOL in there, boy, hey, D, what about to chop your damn head off just now? Let's play some Fortnite. Wait a minute, kid. You stay right there. I'm a Fortnite, you all right? Welcome to the ban zone. You don't get to say shit else. Yo, taco dip for breakfast is something that I could actually recommend. You know, I would get behind that. If you guys are hungry and trying to find something to eat, and if you got some taco dip laying around,
This episode is brought to you by Skillshare. Philosophers have long contemplated the question of if the world is real or not, but perhaps the better question is if it actually matters.
So does it matter if the world is real or not? That is the question. Okay, so we're going to listen to an episode of Isaac Arthur's Science and Futurism. This episode is entitled The Fermi Paradox in Virtual Worlds, Colonizing Inner Space. This is, once again, Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur, episode 167, season 5, episode 1, January the 3rd, 2019. So this is his latest episode. And we're back to the Fermi paradox, and also the simulation hypothesis is, I think, what he's getting into here when he says virtual worlds and doesn't matter. So these are two really highly debated topics in the realms of science when we trying to figure out, what is our purpose? Where did we come from? Are we the only sentient beings? And so things like the Fermi paradox pops up all the time, which is just this crazy conundrum. And the simulation hypothesis, I became aware of that a few years ago. And it is hard to grasp, but the more you listen to intelligent people break down the concept and the likelihood or possibilities of a simulated reality, it kind of actually makes sense, and it's little things like that I don't know, blows your mind just when you hit the bong and sit back and contemplate this shit. Like, dude, the universe.
So today we begin our 5th year here on Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur, and I am your host, Isaac Arthur. I wanted to start by thanking everyone for tuning in and helping us get to a 5th year. We've covered a lot of fun topics in the last few years, and we've got plenty more to come. I occasionally get asked if I expect to ever run out of topics, and the answer is a resounding no. In general, our queue of new topics to cover expands much faster than we cover them, and of course we often have to revisit topics to update or expand on them, as even a half-hour show is rarely enough to cover all the relevant material.
Exactly.
3 of our favorite topics, of course, are colonizing space, the Fermi paradox, which asks why nobody from other worlds seems to be colonizing space, and the simulation hypothesis, which asks...
And that's it. Like, why can't, when he talks about the Fermi paradox, I love his reasoning behind it and everybody else's reasoning when you get in depth about the Fermi paradox. And the whole thing is, where are they? Oh, aliens and Roswell and, reverse engineering spacecrafts. And okay, but why aren't they colonizing anything? If they have this technology, why don't we see them? Why don't they have, a complete mega city on the moon that we can see? Or, why aren't they on Mars? There would be signs if a civilization is technologically advanced enough to traverse the expanse of space from our closest star, which is, 400 light years away or some crazy shit like that. Like, these stars are not close. If any race of beings could even just make it here, they wouldn't come here alone, or, and it wouldn't, we would be able to see this shit, it would be so obvious that aliens are here that no one would doubt it, and it wouldn't have to be so much speculation and conspiracy behind this shit. And that's the whole Fermi paradox, is like, just like us, if another civilization did come into our solar system, could we hide? Could we just hide that we're here? Like, no, motherfuckers would see that there's some type of life on this planet. You just can't hide that shit. And so once you and I subscribe to the Anunnaki theories and the Sumerian texts for a long time, and aliens visiting the planet in the extreme distant past. Is that possible, feasible? Maybe. And then you have to think, like, just like the Bible, like, why did it stop? So if the aliens were here in the extreme distant past, what happened? Where did they go? Why don't they no longer visit? Why can't we see remnants of them? Oh, and people say, oh, the pyramids. The aliens built the pyramids. But no proof, you know? So, I don't know. The Fermi paradox is one of my favorite topics.
That space and our universe is even real. Today, we'll be looking at all three, and we'll start with a common question that gets asked. Which world should we visit and colonize first? The Moon or Mars, or maybe even Venus or an asteroid? I'm not sure which of those we'll colonize first. We've discussed the pros and cons of each route, but as the first world we'll colonize, it's not very likely to involve spacesuits and rockets, but goggles and implants. This is the first episode of our 5th year, but the first episode of our first year introduced a concept called the Dyson Dilemma of the Fermi Paradox, which can be summarized briefly as saying that in general, if a civilization can comfortably expand and has a motive to do so, it probably will. This raises a concern for the Fermi Paradox, the apparent contradiction between how old and vast the universe is and how devoid it seems to be of other civilizations. The dilemma being that it does seem to be practical to colonize the galaxy, and there are some fairly obvious motives. So even if only a fraction of civilizations ever are so inclined, you ought to be able to see their Dyson swarms everywhere, and we obviously do not. The three most obvious conclusions are that they don't exist yet, or that such colonization is not practical, or that there is no motive. A lot of our episodes focus on showing that colonization of our solar system and our galaxy is viable and likely practical in the future, so we often shift concerns to motives. You have to have a reason to go to the enormous effort of sending ships to other stars to set up civilization. There has to be a gain to outweigh the costs and risks. One example where there would not be one is if we invented a perpetual motion machine. You don't need to risk the dangers of the Oregon Trail to set up a farm on virgin land if you already get a free lunch at home. Even ignoring that it violates the laws of thermodynamics, the most ironclad of all physical laws thus far.
All right, this just came out of nowhere. I'm paying attention to what he's saying, but then something just popped in my head, this movie. So, if you got Netflix, most people got Netflix. If you ain't got Netflix, most people got a Fire Stick or something similar. But you should watch this movie called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Yo, watch that shit. Watch The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And if you're into video games like me, you should watch this other show called High Score Girl. High Score Girl. I've been watching them shits for the past couple of days, and they're pretty awesome. I should know because I like it, and I'm pretty awesome, so I only like awesome shit. So, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs and this other show called High Score Girl, you'll like it.
This notion is problematic. If you have a civilization with virtually unlimited resources and easy manufacturing, such as the automated production we discussed a couple weeks back in the Santa Claus machine, it's actually very easy for them to colonize the galaxy. So there's less obvious motive, but way less cost and risk. The same applies for faster-than-light travel. Crossing the interstellar void just becomes so easy that you need no more motive for doing so than for climbing Mount Everest or going to the South Pole. Now, visiting a place isn't the same as colonizing it, but I'm pretty sure someone would build a house on that mountain or the poles if it was reasonably possible to do so. Indeed, we discussed that latter scenario just a few weeks back in colonizing the Arctic. We have another motive breaker that gets raised sometimes too, though, and it's the general notion that you don't expand outward because you're expanding inward, miniaturizing, going digital, living in virtual worlds. I've often said this is not a good Fermi Paradox solution, and we'll discuss why later. But as we often see with the Fermi Paradox, just because a given scenario isn't a good solution doesn't mean it isn't done. Many civilizations might choose to stay at home. It's a bad Fermi paradox solution not because we can't imagine anyone choosing that, but because we can't imagine everyone does, without exception. That's what we call exclusivity or non-exclusivity in discussions of the Fermi paradox. Not if a scenario is possible or even probable, but if it is so common that all or virtually all civilizations do it. The galaxy is old enough and big enough that even if only a small percent of Earth-like worlds develop life and technological civilizations, that there should be millions of them older than us. And it only takes one with the ability and inclination to have colonized the entire galaxy by now. So any option implying such civilizations are common but do not colonize needs explaining why this outcome is so inevitable it hasn't happened even one single time. Some unavoidable doomsday scenario, or some inevitable convergence to a cultural outlook that revils expansion, that sort of thing. We have a candidate in virtual reality, but for it to truly work, we have to abandon the notion that it is virtual. Such civilizations are not opting to skip on colonizing the galaxy in favor of living in a hedonistic fantasy. They are opting to make new worlds and colonize them. They are building real worlds, because they will only even consider going exclusively this direction if they view them as just that. We've a precedent for this in our discussions. Another of our regular topics is megastructures, and we often say it's far more likely we'll construct most worlds that humans come to live on rather than on terraformed planets. That's where the Dyson part of Dyson Dilemma comes from. You can get a lot more living space out of a big rock by forging it into a lot of cylinder habitats and solar collectors, millions of times as much, enough to englobe an entire star so that it fades from visual sight into a glow of infrared waste heat. That you can do this to almost any star, and as long as you're reliant on matter and energy and expansionist, you will do this to every star. Fundamentally, the Dyson Dilemma asks why we can look up at the night sky and see any stars in it at all. In the 4 years since I introduced the idea, I've kept an eye out for solutions and rebuttals. It may be my concept, but I'm not terribly fond of its implications if valid, so I keep hoping someone will smash it. No luck so far, though some decent objections have been raised, and one of those is that we see those stars because they are supposed to be there for us to see, but they're not actually there, that this is all just a simulated universe, also known as the simulation hypothesis or argument. There's actually nothing wrong with that at all. It's just not helpful since you can't prove or disprove you're in one. And being in one doesn't necessarily remove colonization as an option. It just depends on the motivations of the simulators. Motivations are everything with the simulation hypothesis and with virtual worlds, because the other counter-arguments for them don't stand up well. In a basic look at the simulation hypothesis, we see 3 obvious scenarios. The first is that it isn't possible to create a world as detailed as ours appears to be, or that it is, but the path to doing so inevitably ends in destruction or stagnation before you get there. But that gets harder and harder to call likely the more time passes and technology improves. The other 2 are that you can do such a simulation but choose not to, or not too often, or that you can and do it often, both of which are about motivations and ethics, not capability. But capability matters. We have to rearrange our thinking a bit on virtual reality to something a bit more realistic, no pun intended. Even if we assume near infinite processing power and energy, which is a big assumption, there is a limit on creativity and detail. It takes an insane amount of processing, energy, and detail to build a simulated world that would be so realistic that nearly everyone would find it a completely acceptable substitute for our world. They say you can have anything you want in virtual reality, but you cannot. The scarcity simply changes, that's all. I have all the air and water I could ever want, the 2 things that would kill me quickest if they disappeared, in about 3 minutes and 3 days respectively. On the Moon, or Mars, those items are scarce. Here and there, gold is pretty scarce. In a virtual reality, you could easily have a house built of it as cheaply as wood or stone. And indeed, there are probably worlds out there that just barely survived a nearby impact of a pair of neutron stars and got showered in gold and use it for roof tiles, and farmers clearing fields complain of lumps of worthless gold in their new fields, damaging their plows, and pay folks in potatoes to cut the stuff off. Scarcity is relative. You can't be king of the world in a virtual reality because it wouldn't be much of a world if you were the only person living in it. And even assuming everyone is ethically okay with simulating people in those worlds so perfectly that they are effectively artificial sentient people, not facsimiles, that would take an insane amount of processing power. We might have that one day, but we don't now, and if we get there, we will do so gradually. Your first detailed virtual worlds will be populated with a lot of actual people instead. They will expand it in detail and design, and it will become real. Let me give you some examples. Anyone with a Facebook account can make a group there, but it has little flavor or depth until many have taken up residence there. The channel has one, of course, with thousands of members and hundreds actively participating and talking and shaping it. This channel more broadly has a community. We call it that. We think of it that way. It has no physical location, unless you want to count the actual servers, wherever they are. This isn't internet-specific either. The NFL or FIFA only have locations because football uses stadiums. The World Chess Federation, FIDE, does have headquarters in Athens, but chess clubs don't really need locations. Even before the internet, you could play by mail or just carry a board anywhere with someone else to play. We certainly never question the reality of such groups. Physicality and reality are not inextricably entwined. There are no atoms of justice, no molecules of freedom or art, and while there are quirks of beauty and truth, those names have fallen out of usage and never meant the concepts that were constructed of them. These things are still real, merely abstract rather than concrete objects with physical reference. Even going to those, an apple is a very clear and real thing, but its properties are kind of vague. Not only do they come in many colors, sizes, and flavors, but there is not a single apple left from when that word was coined. They're all gone, so are the people who coined the word, yet humans and apples still exist. Another term with a broad spectrum of meaning, and broader here, where we often have to contemplate people who might be more cybernetic than flesh, or exist entirely in a digital world. Such folks do not yet exist, but I suspect they'd take issue with the implication they and their environment were somehow unreal. And a lot of entirely fictional places already exist. We used to argue whether or not Troy was a real place, till we found its ruins. But we didn't really mean the city, but rather the story of its fall, which is likely almost entirely fictional and mythological. In spite of it, I don't know a single person who lives there now or in the past. Most of us do not. But we know the stories of those people in Homer's classic, and who knows how many millions, if not billions of dollars have been spent or made in the continuance of that tale. How many other stories are tributes or expansions of it? How many of us have read books located in various fictional settings that have what are called expanded universes? Ones where several, sometimes hundreds of people have added details and new stories, often not even very good ones, but the place has become so real to us in its depth that mediocre is okay. It's another tale from a place we've come to view as a second home. Every sequel game or expansion or DLC is such a thing. Every Wikia devoted to a franchise is proof of its effective reality. Why do we discuss this? We are not really interested in philosophical concepts like what is real. Rather, we are interested in what it shows us for a progression. Our individual daydreams or fantasies certainly give us room to think that in the future, most folks might have some personal virtual world. Indeed, you'd almost expect them to, the same as we have our homepage or timeline, or our house on Earth, tailored to your specifics and where you spend much time, but not all of it, and often not most of it either. Those earlier worlds, which need design and expansion, and to share processing power and costs, those are likely to be a lot more detailed and interesting, and get a lot of regulars and form a community. Indeed, you might have a home there that costs you money, depending on its location, possibly quite a lot. There's likely to be rules about what you can and cannot do. No knocking over a local mountain range because it irritates you. No killing everyone's favorite innkeeper. After all, to be fairly real, if not sentient, that innkeeper needs memories of prior interactions and timelines. So you can't just easily reboot him if someone stabs him, because you have to delete that, delete it from every other character there, and explain away the time missing. Doable, but a pain, and someone needs to do that. No PvP during town meetings to discuss the army of White Walkers descending on the wall, even if that discussion is mostly about how the new design patch has resulted in that army attempting to besiege or climb a spot 20 meters in front of the wall, rather than its actual defense.
Game of Thrones?
Someone has to be in charge of many of these, and you might get feudal realms run by the founders who first designed it, or you might get democracies voting for who is designing and administering and arbitrating. You might get arguments about who is a citizen and how much they get to vote, or other places stealing aspects of your world to use in theirs, or if it's okay to open an easy entry portal between the wars of Westeros, Coruscant, and the Klingon Imperial capital, and which versions to use too. If you think canon arguments are brutal now, just wait until someone retcons an entire planet people have spent days living on out of existence. Such places aren't free either, and so you can get fees, presumably flat fees or subscriptions initially, the same for everyone, but that could easily mutate into something like modern tax codes. Have entire business enterprises there. I mean, we already do. Many of our larger MMOs already have their own internal currency people often buy with Earth currencies, and folks who are not in any way part of the game design team, but make a business of it. It would make sense to have an internal sales tax or income tax on such places. You could use it to pay the various player designers for their efforts. And similarly, I'd imagine the IRS takes an interest in such new business ventures back here on physical Earth. It would be so very easy to imagine such a world rebelling against external control and taxation, having its own currency and legal system, issuing passports, and even lobbying various governments over things like internet taxation, bandwidth throttling, and so on. We talked some months back about seasteading and setting up server farms in international waters, and how they might grow to be their own nations even. It's not hard to imagine this is where most of their citizens would actually live. And this is before we even get into entirely uploaded minds who have no body on Earth. Note that I keep saying on Earth, not the physical world or virtual realities, because that's likely to be an increasingly vague notion, and an irrelevant one too. As we expand into space, one of the things we expect to see is a slow-growing swarm of habitats orbiting Earth, a planet swarm as we sometimes call it. Both of these notions are likely to happen long before we have any significant chunk of our population on other planets, and they start to really erode at a lot of what we mean by classic concepts of land, territory, and nations. They also get harder and harder to apply physical force to. You can blow a habitat out of the sky easily enough, but you don't have many other options below that threshold for exerting coercion, and your neighbors are likely to be rather aghast as you unleash Kessler syndrome in orbit and drop megatons of burning debris on the planet below, even if they didn't object to blowing the habitat up on ethical grounds. Similarly, how do you invade a simulated world where the servers are arbitrary and movable, and the residents likely do not appear as they do on Earth or go by that name, and who could probably hide their access with a VPN or similar so you can't track them? Consider it's virtual. Can you even meaningfully have wars without death? Or might that become the normal path for resolving conflicts? Have a third-party inventory and referee a virtual war ending a peace treaty after no casualties? Would you have treaties with such places? Agreements to reveal actual identities? Extradition? What did they get in return? Did they get a vote on the UN? An ambassador or consulate? Does the company that runs the servers for millions of people's pocket universes with their personal home have to obey search and seizure warrants? And at what point do such places become so real and powerful that they can't be forced to, but need to be asked, need to sign a treaty? Talking some months back about seasteading, tiny islands, possibly artificially built, which might become their own nations. That would be hard under current diplomatic conditions, but a virtual nation that keeps only limited maintenance and security personnel in some server farm at sea, but considers itself to have millions of citizens, is in a pretty good position to leverage themselves into some sort of recognized national status. It's quite possibly more of a when, not if, as such things would likely go through epochs as they grew more detailed, larger, more immersive, and potentially transition to people who never really live on Earth, just keep their body there, or who do not even do that, digital minds floating around an immense cloud. At what point do such places get to be genuinely real? Whether you're a digital entity or have implants that can feed your senses, or even just goggles and headphones, when does it start being normal to ask a gal out on a date to the Diogenes Club to have dinner and join Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson afterwards to solve a murder mystery? To go to the Green Dragon for a beer with Frodo and Sam and walk around Hobbiton in the Bywater? Or take a trip to Mount Doom to get rid of this pesky ring you've been given? Does one simply walk into Mordor, or are you obliged to take the long, hard route? Such places are not really bound by normal laws of space, or even necessarily of time. Things can be done there that can't be done here on Earth, like stepping back to a distant time, or existing in the same place as someone else, but each of you with a room to yourself. Are you paying for the whole place to be run by itself with just you and some friends, or are you taking a discount to be in a version mini or sharing? Do you intentionally go there because the interactions and details are better, because you want to meet fellow enthusiasts? Did you log on to the wrong server to meet your date and meet someone else instead? Did you get married by Gandalf? Did you get a house in Minas Tirith and get a simulated pet? Did you have a simulated kid even? Did you join a group determined to get rules passed on the forum, protecting all those prized and cherished things from harm or change or vandalism? That marriage notion is certainly a good comparison. I remember when internet dating was very new and weird. Now it's mundane, and I'm considered a dinosaur for still thinking it's peculiar. It's still rare, even in these days of webcams and high bandwidth, for folks to get engaged or married without meeting in the flesh. But with sufficiently good virtual reality, people might easily get married while living on separate continents, sharing a virtual home, and they could even conceivably have a kid, be it a sub-sentient virtual one, a fully digital human mind, or an artificially inseminated or tank-grown child in the real world, living with one parent, or even neither. That sort of thing is likely far ahead in time, but virtual pets, homes, and marriages or kids, not sentient ones of course, are already a common feature of many MMO or simulation games, and folks can get quite attached to them. We could get whole communities existing around fictional worlds, and that's hardly new, if far more elaborate and commonplace these days. At what point do these places get so real that they become real worlds in almost every meaningful sense? Could future tourism even go to such places from other worlds, because light lag prevents you logging on from Mars, so you actually travel to Earth to log into a well-known and popular virtual world? Some may even be willing to slow down virtual reality time to make the light lag less problematic, where 1 hour in normal reality is a second in virtual time. This we call frame jacking. Using that trick, apparently lagless real-time conversations with Mars become possible. To see that trick being used when processing bandwidth is an issue due to overheating or monetary expense. So if it takes 10 real-world processors to simulate 1 second in your virtual reality, you could instead cheapen that up by having one processor that simulates 1 second in the virtual reality, but takes 10 real seconds to do it. The side effect is that living in your virtual world will put you out of sync with the real world around you. You could wake up after a year in virtual reality to discover your kids have grown up and you're now a grandparent. This could go the other way too. Accelerated consciousness, where you wake up from a virtual world you spent a lifetime in, only to find out mere minutes have passed outside. And here's the key thing. These worlds are very likely to exist and grow into robust places of their own, with large populations and complexities, far sooner than thriving colonies on other planets. almost certainly before we might colonize distant stars. They are quite likely to be the first worlds we build and name, far more likely to be the places that set precedents on how new nations or civilizations form as independent or semi-independent places. They may be faster to colonize too, since they have a unique approach to new worlds and civil wars. If you're running a simulated world whose citizens start factionalizing too much, they can literally copy that place, like an amoeba dividing in two, colonial mitosis. You could end up with worlds that were grouped up by species or genre, individual states of larger federations, where their numbers and power alone weren't enough to let them negotiate with Earth-based countries or other larger virtual nations. Likely many people would live in more than one, possibly having a primary above on Earth or a specific virtual world or private one, which might result in some very bizarre arguments over dual citizenship, where you get to vote, and who you pay taxes to. You might get some sort of fractional citizenship concept. Though I suspect most folks would tend to shift to a primary abode, even if that might change with time as it does now when we move. And it can go one step further. Whether you are entirely digitized in that world or just accessing it from your body, for the full experience, you might want not to really remember the outside world, even if just while you're there. There's a precedent in our thinking for this. Most of us don't think we're in dreams while having them. We don't really need to cut off our memories of life to believe in it while experiencing it, and usually at most just have a few hazy moments of confusion when waking up before separating dream from reality. That might be a starting point for developing more immersive experiences that were still you, and that would be a hugely valuable technology. Though it raises some bizarre options, even before we consider things like speeded up subjective times or frame jacking. If you go to sleep each night, or maybe just spend your lunch breaks in such a world, as a recurring dream essentially, might you start to have a divergent personality there? You on Earth dislike hunting and vote to restrict it, while you in that other world has developed a fondness for it and votes to make it easier. How much of your personality separates to that place, that group, that existence? Especially if you don't really know, while you're there, that here even exists. Many strange options, for the worlds and for us in them, and being inquisitive by nature, if we are so into it, would we start trying to puzzle out the rules and physics of such places? Ask weird questions like why there are so many stars in the night sky that seem uninhabited, and laugh off the notion that they might be fake, because no one would go to such an effort to make a simulated world. But I mentioned the Fermi paradox near the beginning, and how this isn't a great solution for it. That might seem contradictory now that we've just finished looking at how tempting and possibly even inevitable such places might be, especially if we could make characters in them who pass as genuine humans, so well we couldn't really tell them from other folks like us logged in there. And that is why it isn't a good solution. However real these places are, and however real seeming their inhabitants, indeed possibly fully sentient and every bit as much a person as you or I, they still require a physical substrate made of matter and powered by energy. The more of both you have, the more such worlds you can make, the more complex and detailed they can be, and the longer they can run, and the more inhabitants they could have. And you want them to run too. Even if you died, even if we all died, we'd want those places and the people in them to persist, especially if they were people, fully sentient and intelligent. And that's the key. We want more matter and energy, and we do not have to go out in the universe ourselves to acquire those, if we can make things smart enough to decently pass for human. Every bit of technology you need to immerse yourself in such places as genuine substitutes or supplements for this reality builds the exact same tech needed to make, for instance, an automated probe smart enough to be able to do tasks like extract metals and build things such as power collectors, processing units, and copies of itself. Honestly, it's child's play to make a mining robot as opposed to a believable simulation of a human character. Such civilizations might come to view Earth and our universe as rather boring. I suspect, though, that this would still be the most interesting bit of the world where the largest number of people were conscious at any given time. But even if they did, they only have to build and program one mining robot one time, and would have the capacity to do so long before they started hitting those levels of realism that might tempt everyone to move to those other worlds so unlike home, but so near to hand. I don't think this total approach would be likely, that every single person would decide to live 1 foot in simulated worlds, let alone both. But even if they did, they still have every motivation to keep seeking more material and resources in our physical universe. As to how big such a thing could get, as we saw way back in Matryoshka brains, entire solar systems turned into computers, a Dyson swarm devoted to computation, and we said they are such a thing based on our best estimates for maximum processing power and human whole brain emulation, could host some 10 to the 34th people, a trillion times our current population, a trillion times what our whole galaxy could hold if we terraformed every plausible planet to hold current Earth populations, and hundreds of times what the whole galaxy could hold if we turned every single star into a Dyson swarm populated with organic folks. But if you recall, back in Mega-Earths, we discussed something called a Birch planet, a single massive shell world around a black hole, whose absolute maximum size, in terms of mass, exceeds that of our entire galaxy. And that was a maximum based on wanting everyone on the same sphere, without the sphere being swallowed by the black hole's event horizon. So you could supersize a Matryoshka brain to be even bigger than a Dyson swarm around one planet, by making a Matryoshka brain Birch planet shell world. Hybridizing the place, you'd end up with a vast layer of shell worlds of millions of solar masses, composed of a mix of physical places and virtual ones, where some folks lived entirely physically, others entirely digitally, and many folks in various degrees of in-between. There's no upper limit on such a construct in terms of mass. Your size limitations come from dissipating waste heat and avoiding becoming a black hole by your sheer mass. Black hole event horizons are a non-issue until you start getting into millions of solar masses. Even the one at our galaxy's center is only a few light seconds in radius, tiny compared to a solar system, though again that rises linearly, so it becomes a dominant factor on size once you get into the billions of solar masses. Heat dissipation rises with a square radius, and as we discussed in the Kardashev scale episode, this means population density of any giant swarms of habitats, organic or digital, has to drop inverse to population size. Make such a mega Dyson swarm twice as wide, and it has 8 times the volume, but can only have quadruple the people. You're also doubling the time it takes to talk to those furthest away, but more importantly, are increasing your minimum signal lag in a local sense, as you have to spread out more. Neither gives a compelling reason not to build bigger, though. So for a Fermi paradox solution, this one remains a no-go, not because I think such scenarios are unlikely. Quite to the contrary, I find them very likely. However, it only requires a small chunk of their population wanting to colonize the galaxy more traditionally for that to happen. And even if they stick at home, they have every reason to pillage their galaxy and those nearby for raw materials, all the way down to disassembling the stars for fuel and construction material. See the star lifting and Shikata thrusters episodes for details on how to do that. Not exactly unethical locust behavior either. You're pillaging hundreds of star systems to create countless trillions of worlds, or a whole galaxy to make so many worlds it can only be expressed numerically in scientific notation. Astronomy standpoint, it still just looks like a very large infrared source though, quite visible and noticeable, so again, not a good Fermi paradox solution. Probably a big job for the future though, and not a very distant future at that. Designing artificial worlds already employs a lot of authors, Hollywood set designers, and graphical artists, and that will only grow with time as we are better able to visualize our dreams and engage in true world building. One thing we can say for certain is that virtual reality is only going to grow as part of our world, and will play an increasingly larger role in entertainment and education in the coming years. If you're interested in learning how virtual reality works and designing assets, graphics, and programs for it, maybe even making a career of it, then you might want to check out some of the courses on virtual reality at Skillshare. They are an online community with over 20,000 courses on everything from technical topics like virtual reality, graphic design, and computer programming to accounting or culinary arts. If you want to improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love, you can get a premium membership and have unlimited access to classes on those topics and many more. Millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for my listeners. Get 2 months of Skillshare for free. To sign up, go to skl.sh/Isaac6. Again, go to skl.sh/Isaac6 to get 2 months of unlimited access to over 20,000 classes for free. Act now for this special offer and start learning today. So we started the year off with looking at new and strange worlds close to home, as opposed to colonizing distant worlds around alien suns. Next week, we'll look at another peculiar approach, creating our own suns and stars in Making Suns. The week after that, we will come back down to Earth and keep heading down to explore the possibility of subterranean cities, whole communities living inside vast artificial caverns. For alerts when those and other episodes come out, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like it and share it with others. Until next time, thanks for watching and have a great week. We often speculate about what would happen if an alien civilization visited us. But what if one already has? So today, our main topic is the idea that ancient alien civilizations might have visited us and influenced our civilization at some point in the past. This is a bit of a tricky topic because on the one hand, we have tons of really half-baked examples in this category of Fermi paradox solutions, while on the other, it's actually one of the logically stronger examples. The Fermi paradox, the seeming contradiction between the ancient immensity of the universe and how we seem to be its only inhabitants, has tons of proposed solutions. Here at SFIA, we generally break them down into 4 main categories.
Great
The first
filters.
is that intelligent technological life just emerges far less often than we tend to assume, or doesn't last long. The second is that it's common enough, but we just aren't seeing it. And the third is that it is common and we do see it, but we just don't recognize it or believe the evidence. The fourth is our miscellaneous category for those that overlap 2 categories or don't fit in. Now we walk through all of these and their subcategories in the Fermi Paradox Compendium, and there are a lot. Even by just giving a passing look at them, that episode still clocks in at over 70 minutes, our longest episode, and the second longest is the original version of that episode. It would probably be beneficial to have seen at least one of those before watching this, though I will recap major points. Over the last couple years, we've tried to give most of our major solutions their own episode, and indeed Category 1, that civilizations are rare, has its own series here, The Great Filters, which in fact only covers part of that category. And to a degree, so does Category 2, that we are not seeing them, in the somewhat tongue-in-cheek Alien Civilization series. However, we tend to skip over Category 3 a lot, and that's mostly because it's awkward. The basic theories are actually entirely fine, and as a reminder, those subcategories are 3A, aliens are here but in secret, 3b, aliens visited our ancestors, our main focus for today, 3c, aliens are here but we can't tell, and 3d, we are actually aliens. There is a lot of overlap in these categories too, but 3a, that they are secretly among us, differs from 3c, that they are here but we can't tell, in that 3c isn't implying any attempt at hiding or deception, or even necessarily that they aren't from Earth. A sentient rock or tree or cloud we just don't even recognize as having a mind would be an example, or critters not from space but from some semi-overlapping parallel reality. 3a, on the other hand, is our UFOs and little green men category. Alternatively, 3b, ancient aliens, is not exclusive of 3d, that we are aliens, since we might be a leftover colony. That was a fairly popular theory back before we had a solid understanding of DNA and a complete enough fossil record to show that our life here almost certainly has common descent to something billions of years back. You can't be a descendant of the aliens of Tau Ceti because we can show that not only are you and I distantly related to our cats and dogs, but they can't be from Tau Ceti either because we can track fossils back to show that common ancestor was here. Of course, it doesn't exclude an alien colony setting up shop here billions of years ago, but then they either must have left uncolonized, some stopped in just to plant a flag and sneezed, leaving only a couple of bacteria behind, or have been wiped out so spectacularly that only microorganisms survived. It also still leaves the door open to panspermia, the notion that the first life on Earth might have arisen not from tidal pools or oceanic thermal vents, but from some comet impacts where the comets housed bacteria, or at least the chemical building blocks for bacteria. One of the things we would like to do when going to other places in our solar system is to look for evidence of life. If we find life in those places, and it is made of the same building blocks as life here, like using DNA, RNA, and amino acids to make proteins, then that will strongly support panspermia. Recently in 2016, the team behind the Rosetta Comet landing mission reported they had discovered the simplest of amino acids. Earth organisms use glycine. In the dust surrounding the comet 67P, we also found glycine. This was a confirmation of the first detection of glycine found during NASA's Stardust mission that flew by the comet Wild 2 in 2004. Now, before we get all excited about panspermia, we did not discover other amino acids we used, and, unlike other amino acids, glycine is the only one that has been shown to be able to form without liquid water. So this might be nothing more than a molecule that occurs in a mixture of organic molecules we find in and around comets. One amino acid an organism does not make. Even so, we do not have a very clear picture of how life initially arises from inanimate material, called abiogenesis, beyond that it should rather obviously require a decently rich soup of appropriate chemicals and an energy input. So all our theories on that are just looking for places where that occurs and trying to guess how common they were on the early planet and which might have been the more probable life-bearing soup. The only two problems with the notion that we might be transplants from another planet are that first, it just moves the origin issue back to an even more distant time and location, and second, you need a transport mechanism. Whether that's intelligent or natural, it leaves a big question mark as to why the galaxy isn't teeming with life, which of course is the whole problem with the Fermi paradox in the first place. It's not a very good Fermi paradox solution if it just leaves you with the same problem. The Fermi paradox is presumably not a real paradox. Folks leave comments about that sometimes, so I feel obliged to state the obvious. We assume there's an entirely logical solution that would make it non-paradoxical. Most solutions proposed do not do a great job at that, and many just pass the buck, but some actually exacerbate it. We try to look at the problem from the perspective of known science and technologies that are reasonably plausible under that science. Folks will often suggest some science or tech that would seem to solve the problem. After all, we are very new to science and new theories are abundant, but most actually make it worse. Faster than light travel, time travel, travel to parallel universes, technologies that can create or convert energy even better than fusion or antimatter, or thermodynamics bending technology like a perpetual motion machine, all make exploring, traveling, and colonizing the galaxy easier, which does not help with the Fermi paradox. If you assume civilizations have warp speed travel, then the option that they haven't colonized the galaxy relies entirely on a matter of preference, and extinction becomes ludicrous. They will have had some remnant or distant isolationist colony survive anything that brought them down, and on astronomical timelines, even a handful of folks can breed back up a galactic civilization. This is a big problem for everything in all Category 2 and 3, and most of the miscellaneous ones in 4 as well, but is especially lethal for 3D, the idea that we are descendants of aliens. 3C, that we can't recognize them as intelligent, small clouds or rocks or trees, suffers from the other problems we discussed in the compendium, mostly one big problem for the theory and one big problem in discussing it. The problem with the theory is that, in a nutshell, intelligence can recognize other intelligence. Assuming your intelligence evolved, it did so because it served a practical purpose in aiding your survival, which for higher intelligence means having tools and altering your environment. You don't really need a high abstraction thought process for quick dodging of predators. Indeed, it actually tends to hinder that, as we discussed before. Conscious thought can slow you down. The kind of intelligence that would tend to lead to civilizations and technology are the kind that form a group to spot wolves to defend against them, or hunt them instead. Those tools and alterations are noticeable and easily recognized as artificial on the whole. The other problem, in us discussing it, is that you can't really prove or disprove it. I don't know how to disprove that a rock is intelligent, or that there's a parallel Earth, like some fey realms of fairies and leprechauns, that we can't detect. Same as the simulation argument, or the notion that reality might be a dream, you can't prove or disprove it, so discussing it tends to be fairly futile. Falsifiability is important in theories, not just for good science, but because generally that which can't be falsified or proven typically has no obvious bearing on our existence anyway. That leaves us 3A, aliens among us now, and 3B, aliens among us way back. Needless to say, both could be true. They aren't exclusive. And for that matter, while I don't give it a category, these subcategories exist under the assumption that there aren't aliens hanging around openly and publicly on Earth anyway. That's sort of the point of the paradox in the first place. But we can't actually rule out that you and I might simply be insane, that your neighbor has green skin, has a UFO in their driveway, is not from Jupiter, Florida, but the actual planet, makes no secret of this, and you just filter it out. Considering lots of people seem to do this with other things, that we tend to accuse folks who follow Category 3A of being unhinged is probably rather unfair. Many of the other solutions require either us or the aliens to have some behaviors that might be viewed by many as rather stupid or crazy too. So this option shouldn't be dismissed too casually, though of course the actual point is that any theory which seems about as likely as personal self-deception or insanity probably should be given no more weight than that option either. This is the reason we mostly skip 3A here. I don't think people are nuts for believing in UFOs. I just think they're wrong. There are some crazy people who believe in them, and there are some liars who claim they've seen them. But there are also crazy people who believe the city of London exists, and some liars who claim to have been there. Neither indicates that London does not exist and does not get visited, nor is it particularly likely it doesn't exist, and I've somehow fooled myself into believing it does. Quantity has a quality all of its own. For some things, for science and for eyewitnesses, it's less so. The problem is that people already know this, but if you've had a flying saucer land in your front yard, or at least your memory indicates that's what it was, even if that wasn't true, well, let's be honest, you are probably not going to believe evidence to the contrary. That doesn't make you crazy or stupid, and since so many people say such things, we tend to assume they can't all be wrong or liars, and many folks find this reasoning compelling. Many others do not. I do not. And I won't pretend otherwise, but I won't ridicule folks for that belief. It's a pointless waste of time and mean-spirited, and I at least have more than enough bad karma to work on that I prefer to spend my time doing that rather than incurring more. So that's basically 3A. It differs from the others in that there is actually a ton of evidence supporting it. It just happens to be very questionable. And unlike the others, it's a theory whose evidence comes from the one place in the universe we can easily examine, Earth, in the here and now. All the others at least benefit from being hard to examine. Even 3B, Ancient Aliens, at least benefits from being in the past, and we are always digging out new bits of the past we didn't know about, sometimes whole civilizations. And of course 3B is our main focus for today, which we should probably finally get to. Welcome to SFIA, by the way, where we always have a point but sometimes need an hour to get there, hence why everyone is always encouraged to grab a drink and a snack before hitting play. B, Ancient Aliens, is actually not a bad theory in and of itself, which is funny as it's probably the most ridiculed. While it's humorous and humble to suggest nobody visits Earth because we are boring, or that advanced aliens give us no more regard than we give ants, that's all those are, humorous and humble. Ignoring that we have whole academic disciplines devoted to studying ants or small groups of people in the wilderness, the key thing about being hyper-intelligent is that you can multitask and learn a lot. For those of you who remember the Matryoshka brain we've discussed before, a computer powered by an entire star, that thing has enough processing power to not only emulate the minds of every human on Earth, but enough to do every single person in the entire observable universe. It could do so even if every single planet in it, all the billions in this galaxy and billions of other galaxies, each had billions of people on them. And that concept doesn't even assume any freaking new science. You might wonder what it would gain from talking to us, but it's quite capable of holding a simultaneous discussion with every person alive without even noticing the processing power used for that. On top of that, intelligence doesn't scale well. Humans don't find ants interesting because we are relatively stupid. We find them interesting because we are quite smart and curious. Nobody goes around saying they don't study parrots or cats or oak trees because they're too smart to bother with such idiots. There's no way to guess what an advanced civilization would find interesting, but you'd expect them to be more curious and inquisitive than us, not the reverse. We have spoken about post-scarcity societies on this channel before, and one of the things that folks in post-scarcity societies would be interested in is occupying their time with something meaningful. We already find it interesting to study microbes, plants, and critters on our little planet. A civilization that has used all of the power outputted by their star, a Kardashev 2 civilization, would presumably have members interested in doing this too, even if the average alien
Fuck. Alright. Trying to get a artist for an interview. And let me take a break for a minute, guys. Been in here for 2 hours, but the first stream shut down on me like after an hour. We were in here for like an hour or something. And then I just lost connection and the stream shut down, so we started it back up. So I've actually been in here for a good while, like almost 3.5 hours. Yes, 11 o'clock. I've been here since about 8. Once again, I always appreciate the company, guys. And we are going to continue to work on this piece, getting a lot of the reds done. If I come back in here later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning, work on the pants with the red, the background a little bit. like I said, it's getting pretty close to being done. The vest and the barrel that he's sitting on will be just different shades of gray. And like I said, we'll hit the smoke one more time to get some really bright highlights on those clouds of smoke to pull that out. And then we'll call this one done and be on to the next one. For sure, my man. I ain't gonna do nothing but chill. I gotta get on the internet and look at some things. I don't know, man. There's just this one little spot. Yeah, I can do that. That's what I gotta say, man. There's a little bit of stuff in that bathroom I can paint, man, but I need a break for a couple days. I might just wait till next weekend to do that shit. I've been going hard on that shit for a minute. After I got all that tile work and shit done, like, that was my main goal. And like I said, it's just, I had to mud a little couple of spots, but that should be alright for a while. And ain't pressed to get it painted. So I said, I need a couple of relaxation days. But yeah, definitely. If you guys are gonna get on now, hey, bro, man, you be thinking the same thing, man. I'd have had my pears fell on me, so I ate the last little bit of taco dip. Man, it's time for something else, man. I need a second breakfast. I'm just about to chill and relax for a minute. Got a little bit done painting, streamed for a couple hours, trying to get back into this routine, man. Getting this artwork out there. So me and my man D1 about to hook up and get on some. This is how I gotta hold my phone with these pants, because it don't have a pocket. I can't get over that shit. But yeah, me and D1 about to get on some video games for a little while, man. It's Sunday. I ain't got too much planned. I ain't trying to do too much. I ain't making no fuss. I ain't complaining about nothing. I'm about to go find me something else to eat and go downstairs and turn on the other PlayStation. Yo, peace. Until next time.